Now what this waterproofing chemical does is it coats that chalcopyrite only and not the waste rock. And it basically makes the mineral scared of water. So when you start pumping air into the cell, like I'm doing now, those bubbles start to form with that fracking agent. The easiest route out of the water for the chalcopyrite is to stick to those bubbles. It gets lifted up to the surface and out of the trough, while the waste rock actually stays at the bottom and gets left behind. You guys can see it a little bit in this photo. In color, these are actually really like metallic looking almost. Now, big wooden troughs were used for frost flotation in the mill building, and these bubbles would actually just be overflowing out of them all day long. They would come down chutes into large tanks, which were called thickeners, on these platforms right here behind me.
Now, what other chemicals were used?
I think the waterproofing chemical was xanthate, I believe. Now, inside of those tanks, these bubbles are going to start to pop, which is what we want. You guys can see now, all that's left over is this really fine, sparkly black sand. That is our chalcopyrite. We separated it from that rock, and this is actually the last thing that was coming out of Britannia mine here. We got it dried out first though, because it's way too wet and soupy for transport. Once it's all dry, we now have our copper concentrate, and it's in this middle box right here. This would be sent off to a smelter where you melt it down and you're able to extract your pure copper from it. Then you can start making yourself like pipes and wires. Well, not so much pennies anymore, but you get the idea. And the cool thing with copper, you guys, is that it is recyclable. So some of the things that we use today could have come out of Britannia when it was still in operation. We produced about 17% of the world's copper in our peak time, which is a lot. I mentioned too, we also found lead, zinc, and cadmium. We would mine for those when copper prices were low to kind of keep the mine afloat. We also found gold and silver that were extracted out of the tailings or the waste rock left behind. About 14 tons of gold came out of here over the 7 years. I know that may not sound like a lot, but gold and silver was actually a total byproduct for the mine. We weren't looking for it, we just kind of found it, so it's an epic bonus if you ask me. As for those tailings, most of them were actually dumped out into Howe Sound. About 40 million tons worth of it. So much it actually built up the landmass up there. Now, despite all this, you guys, in 1974, the mine did close down, mostly because copper prices plummeted in November of that year. There also wasn't a lot left within the mountain anymore. They were struggling to make a profit. So they decided it was best to shut down. And in 1975, the museum did open up, and we've been